So here we are at the start of ride 2, and as any Sydney cyclist does when they've got a lovely bike on a lovely day, I've visited West Head and I'm going to take it for a spin. It's a reminder of what she looks like. Admit it, you'd like to have a bike like this on a day like this. Pretty special, huh? So I've just been for a ride. A couple of things to notice. I found that the handlebars are fine, even though they're tilting the levers down a little further than I'm used to. We adjusted the angle a little bit in the workshop. You can have a look at episode 2 to understand how Chris did that with the shims. I'm starting to think that a little bit of the noise that I'm getting from the front end is from the shims themselves, not necessarily the ones underneath the handlebars to give the tilt to the handlebars, rather the ones to raise the handlebars. Another big feature of the S5 of 2019 is the fact that it accommodates, or it's said to accommodate, 28mm tyres. So just so happens that yesterday the first shipment of the GP, or the Continental GP 5000s, arrived in Australia. Now there's a little bit of discussion in forums about whether they measure actually 28mm. Some say they're a little bit smaller, some say they're a little bit bigger. And of course it depends on the size of the rim as to how they sit on your bike. I'm going to put these ones on the Cervelo S5 and just see how we go with the tyre clearance. The ones that came with the bike are 25s, and it's still a very, very tight fit. It's a new, slightly new tread pattern. There we go, the GP 5000 has landed in Australia and now available in shops everywhere. Said to be about $90 retail. I've just been riding at West Head and I've bumped into Martin, who's from Slovakia.
Yeah.
And the reason that we're speaking is that Martin owns a Cervelo as well, an S5 as well, but this is a rim brake SRAM equipped edition. That's his. Martin hadn't seen the bike until I showed it to him, so I can get some initial impressions of a customer. What do you think of the new bike?
Oh, looks much better compared to my one, and I like the top one. I like this part much more than mine, and it looks much more aero. So yeah, it's really beautiful, really beautiful.
As a Cervelo customer, what are you looking for in the bike?
Speed, definitely speed.
Yeah.
It's completely different, I think. It looks similar, but when you sit on the bike, it's different. Yeah. Rides in now and I'm getting used to the bike. One thing I can tell you is I just spent a little bit of time with the torque wrench earlier this morning, and I just had a look at the bolts on the stem. Just fasten them just a tiny little bit, but it's really improved the little issue with noise that I had. I think just because of the carbon plates that we've put for the riser of the stem, that there was just a little bit of any movement would really amplify the sound. So I found that the torque setting of 8 Newton meters, we were sitting at about 7.5, and that extra half a Newton meter really made a difference. It doesn't creak like it did earlier. Obviously out of the saddle sometimes there is a little bit of carbon sound, but you can't avoid that when you've got a carbon fibre bike. Other things that I've noticed on the first few rides, toe overlap is an issue that some people talk about. It's worth referencing because this is a 54 centimetre my focus. My traditional bike is a 54 centimetre frame. And this one at the front end from centre of bottom bracket to centre of front axle is a centimetre shorter. And with that, it just means my toe brushes the front wheel when I'm doing a track stand. Basically what I'm trying to do today is show the bike from different angles. The road down to Bradley's Head features a couple of little bumps here and there, but crucially some turns that you can take at speed. There's a few hairpins down the bottom which you can hit at about 50k an hour, and that's where you notice the disc brakes coming into their own. And now the brakes are working beautifully. I think the disc brake debate is all over. People understand that it's here to stay, and rightfully so. Comparing it with an S5 that I saw from a few years ago, the brake bridge on the rear certainly looks a lot neater on this one. The torque is about the cockpit. That makes a big difference. It makes a big difference in ride quality, in the way that it looks, and also in the way that it comes together. To be honest, the biggest differences are probably the ones that I noticed just at looking at the components. We're talking about the ride quality anyway. You take a glance at the seat post, you know it's going to be a little bit stiffer, and it is. You take a look at the levers and you realise they're a little bit longer, and that affects the ride quality because, as someone said in a comment under the first ride video clip, you look a bit like you're reaching. I suppose I was at first. I fiddled with the position a little bit, brought the saddle forward a tiny bit, and realised that if I'm on the ends of the hoods, I probably am reaching compared to what I'm used to. If there's anything that I can tell you is that my numbers aren't lying to me. I don't have a power meter, admittedly, but I can tell you I seem to be hitting 30, 40 and then 50k an hour a lot easier than I do on my bike. And that's what you want, isn't it?